The subject of today's video was arguably the most dominating player in college football. Some could argue he's the most dominating player in college football since Jadeveon Clowney, and he is a guy who is going to be a Hall of Famer someday in the NFL. Will Anderson had first place Heisman votes, was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, a first-team All-American, the most dominant player in the game, and someone who has a pretty inspiring story. In today's video, we're going to examine who Will Anderson is, go through his crazy journey to get to this point, just how good he is at Alabama, and what is in store for the future of him. But right before we get into it, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and I know we can do better than that, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for the algorithm, turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what player I should feature in my next video. Now, let's get started and talk about Will Anderson. Before Will Anderson became one of the best players in football, he was just a kid growing up in the state of Georgia. Like most kids there, he took a liking to the Bulldogs. He said, quote, "I did grow up a Georgia fan. I got recruited by them a little bit, and I didn't get too much attention from them, but it worked out well. On the brink of getting a Georgia offer, but they never ended up offering him, and his mom had this to say about it. Quote, every player starts out wanting to play at the college of their state, so of course that was the dream." It was the dream for Will. It's what we expected as the hype came, as we thought, oh, he's going to get an offer from UGA, and then when it didn't happen, we did transition well. We still love our home state, but that wasn't the plan. So we transitioned to the schools that were interested, which thankfully, one of them was Alabama. And before that, he was a big deal, but not a 5-star recruit by any means. Anderson went from the number 390 player in his class to the number 17 player in the final 2020 rankings. Early on in his recruitment, his big offers were Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Purdue, and many thought he would eventually get that Georgia offer, which was the favorite to land him. But as we've been saying, that did not happen. He never got that Georgia offer despite being that highly ranked, and you could say Nick Saban once again got the best of Kirby Smart. So why didn't Kirby offer? Here's what his high school coach had to say. Quote, they were interested in him, and he went over there and visited them a couple of times. Of course, being in Georgia, a lot of these kids grow up being Georgia fans, and that becomes their dream school. But from my understanding of the recruitment, they recruited him, but he was an in-between kid. They didn't know if he would fit the outside linebacker scheme, where they would use him more in space and use him out and about. So he was kind of that in-between guy, and he wasn't big enough for one, and wasn't agile or athletic enough for the other. Well, I think they were wrong on both of those takes, as Anderson would make them pay. Alabama made him a priority, and he began to fall for the idea of wearing crimson. Alabama would first get involved in his recruitment in 2019 when their director of football recruiting invited him and his family to attend Alabama's Elite Junior Day. At that point, Anderson had already narrowed his list of schools to Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech, and was honestly skeptical the interest was even real. This would change everything though. His mother said, quote, "It was just amazing. We went in thinking we were going to go see the school and find out everything about Alabama, but we actually walked away like, oh my gosh, I could see him here. But we didn't think anything about it. And then they told us that Coach Saban wanted to talk with us, and of course, who's going to turn that one down? We went in and we talked to Coach Saban, and he was just telling Will what they could offer and things of that nature. And I'm looking at Will saying that if he offers, we're going to have to run out of here." She also said she teared up, and that would eventually happen. Anderson quickly felt at home in Tuscaloosa and visited Alabama 5 more times before signing his national letter of intent and enrolling early. He came from Dutchtown High School in Hampton, Georgia, and he did pick the Tide over offers from over 40 schools. So why did he go to Alabama? He said, quote, "What stood out about Alabama is the group of men that's there and in this facility. In high school, I told myself I wanted to be surrounded by people who have the same mentality as me, the same expectations, and the same standard. When you come to a place like Alabama, everyone in the locker room has the same expectations for themselves and the same mentality and competitiveness. To be at Alabama, you have to be a very good competitor, and you have to be able to compete every day, even when you don't feel like competing. So yeah, it's just a different type of mindset when you come to Alabama, and I think that was the biggest thing for me when I was getting recruited. That's why I wanted to come here, because of the mindset, and because of the men who are going to be here to help me along the way, and help me to get where I want to be." So now Anderson was a 5-star player and was headed to the Tide. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a 5-star, number 1 defensive end, and the 17th best player in the class of 2020. Like most Bama recruits, you'd redshirt, maybe play a little bit, and then eventually become a star as an upperclassman. That is not how it went with Will. Immediately when he got there, their star lineman DJ Dale had this to say. He's just a guy who came in, and you could just tell that he's got it. His confidence, he's just so willing to learn, he's a great player, he's absolutely got it, and he came in with it. Luckily for Anderson, Bama had lost both of its starting outside linebackers from the past year. Those guys were Terrell Lewis and Anthony Jennings. and they were both headed on to the NFL. That would open up an opportunity for them to play. He ended up competing with Ben Davis and Christopher Allen, and apparently he did so well, he rose to the point where he could earn significant playing time as a true freshman. There were rumors that he had multiple sacks in the team's first scrimmage, and that he was a disruptive presence and consistent throughout fall camp. So how did Will Anderson do as a true freshman in 2020? Well, he had a pretty good year. He finished with 52 tackles, 7 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Bama had one of the best defenses in the country. They went undefeated and won another national title. Anderson, as a true freshman, was an All-American, named an All-SEC player, and everyone was gushing about his future. Little did they know that he would have a monster 2021 campaign. So far this year, he's finished with 91 tackles and 15.5 sacks, but the numbers do not tell the whole story with him. As I've been doing research, many college football insiders have been saying he's the most disruptive player in the game, and that he is by far the best player in college football. Keep in mind, his teammate Bryce Young just won the Heisman, and many believed Will Anderson was a better player. He was constantly a force, and despite entire offensive game plans being schemed around him, he still managed to finish with 15.5 sacks and just could not be stopped. No matter what you did, he was going to get to the quarterback, and he was going to disrupt the offense's game plan. Many thought he would be a Heisman finalist, but he was snubbed. This caused a lot of outrage amongst Alabama fans, and honestly, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. He actually got some first place votes, but was not brought to the ceremony. Many believe he could be the #1 overall pick in the 2023 draft. He could be the best Bama pass rusher of all time, and it's crazy that Georgia never offered him. There's already some campaigns talking about tanking for him, and he seems to be very smart, as he is waiting to sign any NIL deals till after the year is over. I expect him to quickly become one of the highest paid players in the game, sign some monster deals, and become a fan favorite amongst the college football world. Nick Saban, who does not openly talk about his players much to the media, but he had this to say, quote, "He's been one of the most productive players in college football as a defensive guy. He's done everything we've asked him to do. He is a consistent player. He is very disciplined in terms of doing his job. He does it with tremendous effort and toughness. So I don't know if there are a lot of good football players on both sides of the ball, but he's done as much for our team as anybody ever has. I don't know how that equates into recognition, but he's done as much for us as anyone could ever hope for." So yeah, he has been a force for Alabama, and I cannot wait to see what he's going to do next year. But unfortunately, there is a stigma around defensive players, and many people don't understand how good he was and how dominating he was. Honestly, I didn't either until I made this video, but I'm a huge Will Anderson supporter, and I'm pumped to see what he is going to do in the future. If you're an Alabama fan, let me know what you think of today's video. Who is the best pass rusher in Alabama history? Who's a player I could take a look at in my next video? And who is the most dominant player you have ever witnessed? Be sure to let me know your answers to those questions down in the comment section. Smash that like button if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.